What are you laughing about?
I told you that over coffee yesterday.
Yes, I told you I'm stealing from you. I was
Okay.
very clear about that.
Welcome to Hey, did you ever see that movie? I'm your host, Des, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Lynn.
Screws fall out all the time. The world is an imperfect place.
Nice reading. And joining us again, the podcaster with a fully packed bong and a goofy haircut, Pat.
You mess with the bull, you get the horns.
All right. This week we will be discussing the 1985 comedy The Breakfast Club, written and directed by John Hughes, starring Judd Nelson, Molly Ringwald, Michael Anthony Hall, Emilio Estevez, and Ali Sheedy, and Paul Gleason. As always, the podcast will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movie, go watch it, then come back and listen to the podcast. All right, before we get started, I would like to welcome our new listeners in the Philippines. Welcome. And let's take a minute to like and subscribe, especially if you're listening to the podcast on YouTube. As I say every week, we are trying to build our YouTube channel in particularly. So if you are listening on YouTube, pause the podcast, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, even if you shut off the notifications, and share the podcast and comment. We actually got a comment this week from, I don't have his name, but he commented on the fly and gave me a couple of movie suggestions, which I am going to throw by Tony, and maybe we'll do a couple. So there you go. And
You
I'll try.
really didn't write his name down? You have got one dude and you can't write his name down?
I did not.
One comment in fucking a year and a half and you can't write his name down?
All right. Hang on a second.
I think it would be a banner event.
Jesus Christ.
Okay, I got the name right here. Okay. The name is Mr. Daniel Garcia. Mr. Daniel Garcia. So
Hi,
thank you
Daniel.
for commenting.
Hi,
Yes.
Daniel. Congratulations for having our very first comment.
From somebody we don't know.
We've had plenty of
Exactly.
comments. Okay, so there you go. All right, let's do some quick opening thoughts. So this movie was one of my favorite movies for at least a year in 1985. I watched it literally hundreds of times. It was almost a running joke with my friends how many times I had watched this. And, you know, it kind of shaped me as who I was as a teenager in the early, late 80s. I mean, I was John Bender. I literally was John Bender in high school. This was... I mean,
Shocking.
I was the only kid in junior high with tattoos. I was a bad kid. I mean, if you've listened to this podcast, you know the history, sent off to bad kid school, the whole 9 yards. So I could really identify with the Bender character. Pat, had you seen the movie before preparing for the podcast?
Yes, I have many times. And this is one of those movies that if you haven't seen it for a long time and you start watching it, you're like, geez, I forgot how much I like this movie.
Yeah.
There's a lot to like and a lot to not like.
Mm.
But it's two different movies. Halfway through the movie, things get less angry.
Yes.
I think is the word I'm looking for. And I enjoyed it much more.
Dylan, had you seen the movie before preparing for the podcast?
Yeah, I've seen it multiple times. I don't think I've sat down and watched it in its entirety in many, many years. I do mention it later in our podcast that some of it didn't age as well as other parts, but some of it actually changed. My perspective on the scenes changed. So that was kind of cool. And yeah, so that's where I'm at with it.
Cool. All right, let's do some facts. I got a few for this one. So in the intro, Ali Sheedy came up to John Hughes and wanted to use this quote from David Bowie, lines from the song Changes, for the opening of the movie. And she didn't know if Hughes used it or not because he kind of just took the comment and didn't say anything and didn't tell her whether he was going to use it or not. And obviously he did, which I thought was super cool. The song "Don't You Forget About Me" was not written by Simple Minds. It was actually written by Keith Forsey. He's like a music producer, and it was offered. It was actually written for the movie. It was offered to Billy Idol. That's who they wanted to do it. Billy Idol passed on it. Then it was offered to Chrissy Hind of the Pretenders, who also passed on it, but suggested her husband James Kerr, who was the singer of Simple Minds. They
Ba ba ba.
begrud say it, Dylan.
Begrudgingly.
That's right. They begrudgingly did it. Dylan, can you spell begrudgingly?
I'm sure if I had enough time, I could.
Give it a
But
shot.
I'm also a gummy into the day, so
Give it a shot.
Oh, let's not
see if you
go
can.
there.
Let's see if you can
let
do
me
it.
see.
I can hear you tapping.
I'm typing it out because I have to say it. Begrudgingly, I think.
You got it right. Ding, ding, ding. Fee would
Yeah.
be very impressed. Okay.
Yes, I'm the kind of person that I have to either write it out or type it out to make sure I'm spelling it correctly. I can't just say it.
Okay. So Simple Minds did it. They really weren't interested. They didn't think the movie was going to be anything, and they didn't think the song was very good at all. And literally in the part where it goes la 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 la, that was just a place marker when they were writing the song. And they gave such little shit about this. The singer was like, that sounds pretty good. Let's just leave it. So there were actually going to be words there. But no, they never even bothered writing them and just left it like that. I thought it was great. They had forgotten about the song. They were on tour out of the country, out of the United States, and were informed that it was #1 on the Billboard 200. So yeah, I mean, this was theirs. This was like the tune that put them on the map. And
Yeah, they rock it.
yeah, the original title of the movie was originally The Lunch Bunch, which John Hughes got from his son because that's what they were calling detention at his high school in the times. But they ended up going with the Breakfast Club, which I think obviously is much, much better.
It makes no
Dylan,
sense.
Yeah,
Let's
the
put
lunch.
it out
Well-
on the table. It doesn't make any sense. They didn't
Right.
eat breakfast there. They ate lunch there.
Yeah, I mean, the Lunch Bunch actually works better, but it doesn't sound very good. Dylan, do you have any facts?
So I'm stealing a little bit from you, but I also knew this one. A lot of improvisation snuck into this movie. The scene at the very end with Bender putting his hand up, that's improv. He was not told to do that. What are you laughing about?
I told you that over coffee yesterday.
Yes, I told you I'm stealing from you. I was very clear about that. Christ.
Oh, shit.
And one of my favorite parts of the movie, I did not know was improvised, and Des told me today that it was, is when Bender puts the stiletto into the chair, and then you just see Ali Sheedy come from out of screen and steal it, and then disappear again.
Oh, that was hysterical.
All improv.
Yeah.
It's like probably might be my favorite part of the movie, just because it was just so perfectly timed. It was awesome. Love it.
Yeah, John Hughes is famous for letting his teen actors improv stuff. It's just what he does. So.
Yeah.
And she did it right too, because the whole time through the movie she's stealing things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
Super-
to
super
see
klepto.
her head and her hand reach in, grab the knife, and reach off screen again was perfect. You think it was written that way?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the fact is that John Bender or Judd Nelson came into the audition. He brought that whole outfit he's wearing with him. That's all him, nothing by wardrobe. The switchblade was a knife that he carried every day for protection. It was just his knife. Whether or not he ran that past John Hughes or not before he did it, I'm not 100% sure. But I do know that the switchblade was something he brought in. It wasn't written into the script. They didn't get it for him for props or anything. So there you go. And Pat, you have no information on this movie, I'm guessing?
No, not really.
Okay.
Just it got more awards and accolades from big names like Roger Ebert, who gave it 3 out of 4 stars and just thought it was wonderful.
Yeah.
And you really get critic reviews that reflect your own opinion. That usually doesn't happen very often.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, this one was also added to the, what's it called? That big thing where they put movies.
Billboard?
No, the thing, like the Smithsonian fucking thing where they put
Oh,
important
yes.
records
yes.
and
Oh, I see.
movies. And, yeah.
I know
Whatever
what you're
it is.
talking. Yeah,
How
it
pro-
is as much.
How professional of me to know what that thing is called.
Well, if you were going to bring it up, you should have known what it was called.
All right. Just forget that I said that. Okay.
Magic wand, magic wand.
Magic wand. Okay. I'm just going to add this because it just blew me away. So these are all movies that John Hughes either wrote, directed, or in most cases wrote and directed. Are you ready for this? Because there are so many movies in here that I just fucking love. And I cannot believe they are all directly connected to John Hughes. So this man is a genius. And they say he was writing some of these scripts in 2 days. I think he wrote this script in 2 days. So here you go. 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, Weird Science, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, She's Having a Baby, Uncle Buck, National Lampoon's Vacation, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, Mr. Mom, Pretty in Pink, The Great Outdoors, Home Alone 2, Home Alone 3, Career Opportunities, one of my favorite fucking 80s movies ever, Dutch, Some Kind of Wonderful, Beethoven, Curly Sue, Dennis the Menace, 101 Dalmatians, Miracle on 34th Street, and Baby's Day Out, among others. Can you fucking believe that?
Mr. Mom. I
Oh,
love that
Mr.
one.
Mom, so good.
It's so good.
Every one of those were big blockbuster movies.
Yes, this man could fight, and he died at
Genius.
59.
Genius.
Dropped dead of a heart attack at 59 years old. That's crazy, man. So imagine how many more great movies we could have
Right.
got out of him had he not passed away.
Huge loss to the film world.
Okay, we're going to do a Fast Five. I ditched a Fast Five from Breaking Vinyl last week, and I'm going to do it here today, just a fun one. And then I'm going to kind of let it just go away for a little while. And I'll bring it back when I feel inspired to do so. Maybe we'll do some Disaster Piece Theaters coming up or something. Just bring that back for a little while. But this will be the last Fast.
Ideas, aren't you?
Yeah, it is. It gets difficult to come up with these Fast Fives, especially producing two different podcasts. And yeah, so we're just gonna let it
Makes sense.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on the back table for a little while, unless anybody
Switch them up.
Yeah, unless somebody has any good ideas, you can email me. Okay, so Fast Five. Here we go. We have the munchies, and I do have the munchies. So
Me
number
too.
1, Oreos dipped in milk, or Chips Ahoy's also dipped in milk. Pat, what's better?
Oreos.
Delin.
Oreos. Chips Ahoy are gross.
It is. It's Oreos all day long. Now, bonus question. Double stuffed Oreos or regular Oreos, Pat?
Oh, double.
Oh, see, Delin, go ahead.
Regular. Gotta be regular.
Regular. You don't want all that lard. You get that much fucking shit in the middle of those. It goes from tasting like sweet cream filling to fucking like just lard. It's disgusting. So regular is the correct answer. And Oreos is the correct answer. Number 2. This one's for you, Pat. Peanut butter dipped in chocolate cake frosting. Or for the new listeners, for instance, our new listeners in the Philippines, Pat likes to take a container of peanut butter and a container of chocolate cake frosting, and he will have 1 tablespoon where you will dig into the peanut butter and then dip that in the cake frosting and sit there and fucking eat it. Oh my God. Okay, so we got peanut butter dipped in cake frosting or fresh strawberries dipped in high quality chocolate syrup. Pat, which is better?
Strawberries.
Oh, you fucking liar. You would never eat a fucking piece of fresh fruit or a vegetable if your life depended on it.
My colon would think it was an assault if it was a strawberry.
That was a total lie. For the record, Pat would rather eat peanut butter dipped in chocolate cake frosting. Delin.
I had to ruin it for you after you fucking humiliate me again.
Delin. Hey, there's no shame in eating peanut butter dipped in chocolate cake frosting. Delin.
Well, I mean, you're framing it as if there is shame in it.
I mean, listen. I would never do it. I'm not a savage, but there's no shame in it. Delin.
I mean, you just told me how bad strawberries are, that they're covered in pesticides. So now I'm freaked out about strawberries.
Oh yeah. For fun fact. No matter how much you could buy organic strawberries, doesn't matter how much you fucking wash them, you will never get the pesticides out of a strawberry. It's just something about a strawberry, and I don't eat them anymore, and you shouldn't either. Correct answer is a different delicious berry dipped in high quality chocolate syrup. Okay. Number 3,
But you just said all berries have a small
No,
amount of
no,
pesticides, so you're screwed.
no, but other berries you can wash the pesticides off. Something about the strawberry, it it absorbs the pesticides. You can't get it off. And
Maybe it's the
a
seeds.
nut that you want to stay away from is the almond.
Is you.
No, now the almond is something about the way the almond grows. It absorbs the pesticides in through the roots. They're little poison pills. Don't eat them. Don't eat almonds. Okay. Number 3,
God help
Pepperidge
us.
Farm Milano cookie or a Thin Mint Girl Scout cookie. Pat, which cookie would you rather eat?
Thin Mint.
Dylan.
Uh, you suck. Thin Mint. I love a
think
Milano, but if Thin Mints come around once a year, you get the one box, you enjoy them. It's like a treat.
Yeah.
Put them in the freezer.
They're disgusting. You eat like 2 of them and it's just like a peppermint patty. My favorite
course
is
it
the
is.
Milano. So the correct answer is the Pepperidge Farm Milano. Superior cookie all day long. Number 4,
Says you.
Pat. So this one's for you.
No.
A nice healthy salad with a dash of vinaigrette or a kick in the face. Pat, what would you rather have?
I'll go with the salad.
Oh, bullshit. Bullshit. If I was standing there and I had this giant salad in front of me, I was like, I eat the whole thing.
Really?
Or I get to kick you in
Really?
the face once. You'd be like, just try not to hit the nose.
To be honest with you, you live across the street from one of the best farms in like the South Shore.
Never
and you've
stepped
never
foot.
even stepped foot over there.
No.
You are right about that.
We
You
drive
are
out of
right
our
about
way
that.
to go to that place. And Pat.
Now,
Good.
now imagine my mom trying to feed me as a child.
Yeah, just give you
Imagine
a jar
the
of
hell
peanut butter and
I
some,
put her through.
just give you a jar of peanut butter and some cake frosting and plop you down in front of fucking the Flintstones. You're good to go.
No, the Flintstones suck.
Okay. Jesus. Dylan.
Thundercats.
Would you take the salad or the kick in the face?
Oh, salad.
I like it. I like a nice salad. I think Pat actually said to me once, I will never eat a fresh vegetable. It would probably kill me. Okay.
I don't believe I've ever said that. I said if I ever ate a fresh, if I ever ate fresh vegetables, my colon would think it was under attack.
Okay. All right. Number 5. What's better on your favorite dessert? Ready Whip from the can or Cool Whip from the container? Pat.
What's the dessert?
Doesn't matter. Any dessert. Favorite dessert.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
All right, let's say it's a piece of chocolate mousse cake from White's Bakery.
Whipped cream from the can.
Dylan.
Whipped cream from the can, but not Ready Whip. It would always be Cabot's in this house.
Oh yeah, Cabot's. That's fine. Cool Whip's
Yeah.
disgusting. I fucking do not like Cool Whip.
Well,
It's-
see, Cool Whip can be good on a chocolate cream pie because they're both very smooth.
Okay,
I
so
like Cool Whip on Jello.
so I'm
Yes,
gonna
it's good with Jell-O,
kind of
too.
do a little thing here. So Cool Whip and Cabot's whipped cream. This kind of reminds me of mayonnaise and Miracle Whip. Like I like mayonnaise on everything. I'm a mayonnaise guy, as I am a Cabot whipped cream in the can guy. But every once in a while, I want to taste the nastiness of Cool Whip, or I want to taste the nastiness of fucking, like, you think you want Miracle Whip, like, Miracle Whip. And you get it, and you'll eat like 2 sandwiches, and be like, I'm done with this now until next year. All right, that's it. That's why we're not doing the Fast Five anymore. Okay.
Can't imagine why.
Okay.
Oh, shit.
Let's check out the box office on this with a budget of $1 million and a box office gross of $51 million. This was considered a smash hit. And there were talks of them doing a new Breakfast Club every 10 years, and we would see what happened to the characters. But the feud between Judd Nelson and Hughes was so bad, Hughes said he would never work with Judd Nelson again, and he didn't. And I'll get into that later.
I'd like to interject. They were going to do a sequel
Yes.
30 years later,
Yes.
and they would be the exact opposite
Yes.
of who they were as high school students.
Correct. But
But it never found anyone to even think about it.
It was the riff was so bad. Well, it wasn't even a riff. I mean, Judd Nelson had no problem with Hughes, but Hughes hated hated him by the end of this shooting. Okay, let me give you a quick synopsis. 5 high school students meet in Saturday detention and discover how they have a great deal more in common than they thought.
Okay, our plot follows 5 students at fictional Shermer High School in the widely used John Hughes setting of Shermer, Illinois, a fictitious suburb of Chicago based on Hughes's hometown of Northbrook, Illinois, as they report for Saturday detention on March 24th, 1984. While not complete strangers, the 5 are all from different cliques or social groups. John Bender is the criminal, Claire Standish is the princess, Brian Johnson is the brain, Andy Clark is the athlete, and Allison Reynolds is the basket case. The school's disciplinary principal, Richard Vernon, gives them all an assignment. They'll have to write an assignment about who do you think you are, including the violations that landed them in detention in the first place. The seeming delinquent of the group, Bender, is instantly hostile towards his classmates. He acts as though he will urinate on the floor, suggests that they close the library door and have forced sex with Claire, challenges Andy's athletic prowess, and rigs the main door to the library so it can't be braced open, and Vernon can no longer keep an eye on them from his office. Eventually, he antagonizes Vernon so much that he gets 8 more days of detention. Guys, obviously, as with most movies from the 80s, not everything aged particularly well. The use of the word fag is not really considered polite anymore. Obviously, people still use it, but.
Oh, you're such a fag. You're such a fag.
Shut up. And of course, the suggestion that they close the door and rape Claire was pretty gross. I was like, "Ooh, that was not cool, not kosher with me."
So it's funny. So first of all, John Hughes bases almost all of his movies in this town. He writes for his hometown, Ferris Bueller, whole 9 yards. And people give him a little heat because, his movies are not racially diverse. It's just white people. And every once in a while, he'll throw some like horribly stereotyped Asian in there, like Long Duck Dong, for instance. But
Right.
I found out this. So at the time he was writing, at the time, so he writes a lot for his own life. Like these are all his experiences. And the town he grew up in, I think that I did a little research on this. I'm not going to give you the hard numbers, but his town was 90+% white in the 80s when he was growing up there. So he's just writing what he knows about. I don't think this was an intentional thing that he was doing, like trying to exclude races from his movies. I just think that this is what he knew growing up, and this is how he wrote his stories.
I mean, movies in the 80s were not typically diverse. Like, think
No.
about it. They just weren't.
No, and I mean, would it have been cool if Andrew had been African American? Sure, I think it would have been neat. I think it would have added an even deeper layer of these, cliques and people trying to get to know each other and see past, the front and the stigma that you're getting by running with your certain group of people.
Yeah, getting by the facade.
Yeah, it would have been cool having an African American wrestler like a Jock and just seeing this whole thing. So, but unfortunately, we didn't get that. We got Emilio Estevez. So in the opening scene, we see the kids arriving to school. I thought it was really cool because one of my favorite scenes in these, drop-offs is the interaction between Anthony Michael Hall and the mother and sister, we're supposed to just sit there and you find a way to study, mister. And the little girl goes, yeah, that's his real mother. And that's his real sister.
Real sister.
So I thought that was really cool.
I read that too.
Yeah.
And their license plate was EMC squared, so clearly they put a lot of stock in being smart in that family.
Yeah. Claire's
definitely.
Claire's father's car was actually John Hughes's real car, so they used that for the prop. I love it that we
I
get
was
a glimpse.
very disappointed when I found out that it was not the purple Cadillac because you
Right.
said, "Oh, that's John Hughes's car," and I was like, "He drove a purple Cadillac? That's
No.
amazing!" You were like, "Oh no, it was the BMW." I'm like, "Oh, boo, boring."
Yeah.
What a disappointment.
So we get a I love this glimpse into the dynamics between these kids and their parents quickly, because we could have just been left to take our word for what we were seeing when they were telling the stories, but we're going to get to see enough of it to make our own decision on what these dynamics are. And there was a cut scene where Bender's dad actually drops him off. He doesn't walk up to school. He's in a shitty tow truck and they're arguing. And when John gets out of the truck, the dad whips a brown lunch bag off the back of his head and screams, "You're a waste of a paper bag." So we get that. So obviously John Hughes is setting up that Bender is a bad guy, but I saw it differently. He's obviously, and this movie, even though it's laced as like a teen comedy, it's dark. Bender was obviously a child that's been suffering physical and mental abuse from his father. I'm sure his mother's also been, being getting beaten up in front of him by the father. The father is very abusive. Presumably his whole life, um, he's been getting this abuse, and he's acting out to get attention. He probably continues to get suspended because he feels safe there. Like this is a safe place for him, school, even though he's
Yeah,
getting in trouble.
I was actually going to bring that up and say, for such a bad kid, he's showing up at detention on Saturday. It's like probably because it's better to be at school than it is to be at home.
Well, that answers the question I had to myself about how is it that he's going to detention? I
That's
mean, if
why.
he's this delinquent, why would detention mean anything to him? What you just said clears that mystery up.
And I think that he doesn't know how to reach out and ask for help. And I think that he's hoping that this principal or somebody will start asking some questions. But we're going to find out in this movie, not just with Bender, a lot of these kids needed therapy. A lot of these kids needed somebody to step in and ask, what's going on? What's going on with you at home? Um, did Hughes go too far with the on-screen dynamics between Bender and Claire? Absolutely. Which I thought was strange because, like I had mentioned earlier, Judd Nelson was method acting for the whole shoot and was acting inappropriately on and off set, especially towards Molly Ringwald, because that was the dynamic in the movie, which made John Hughes like it infuriated him to the point where he was on the edge of firing Judd Nelson and told the cast he was going to fire Judd into shooting. And it took the rest of the cast protesting the decision to save him from being fired. He said he'd never work with Judd Nelson again, and he didn't. And yeah, I thought that was interesting. And Molly Ringwald, she was 16 during shooting, and Judd Nelson was 26. So when we see scenes like where Judd is under the table putting his face between Molly Ringwald's legs, that's a stand-in actress. That's not Molly Ringwald, which
Good.
I thought was good. Yeah, I thought it was good. So that's what I got. Pat, what do you got?
There were the dynamic of all the students arriving at school. You can see right away the rift between student and parent. Uh, Brian's parent mother was just overbearing. Andrew's father was a dick, um, and you could see the coddling relationship between Claire's father and her. Uh, Actually, going as far as saying it's not a crime for skipping school to go shopping or something along those
Yeah,
lines. And I was like, Jesus, really? This is how you treat your daughter? She skipped school to go shopping, and you think it's okay?
yeah,
That's insane.
yeah.
But there was some notable. There was one notable line in that opening scene when they're first interacting with each other. When when Bender says, "I don't know any lepers either, but I'm not going to go out and join one of their fucking clubs."
Right, right. Yeah, it's good stuff. I felt really bad for Ali Sheedy's character, Allison, too, because she turns back to almost say something to her parents and they just drive away. These people have no interest in her at all. Again, completely neglected, middle class family, but it's sad.
Yeah, that was Gen X in a bubble, I think. That was a
Yeah.
lot of our experiences was that parents were really not interested in anything going on with you. So the kids ignore the writing assignment. Allison draws a really lovely picture of a covered bridge, but then uses her dandruff to as snow, and that's really fucking gross. Everyone eventually falls asleep until Vernon returns to take them all to the bathroom. Afterward, he disappears again, and the janitor, Carl, comes around to empty the trash. Bender is antagonistic towards him as well as everybody else before the man reveals that he knows everything that happens in the school, and he'd be better off keeping his distance. During lunch, Bender jovially mocks Brian's home life and then offers everyone a glimpse into his relationship with his own father, who abuses him both verbally and physically. In a rage, Bender runs off and sits alone, hurt by what he revealed to the group, because I have a feeling he does not share often. And it's
No.
really hard to not have empathy for Bender at this point. As much as like at the beginning of the movie, I'm like, oh, this kid. Like if I had to spend a day with him, I'd be so annoyed. But like then
Dickhead.
yeah, and then you get a glimpse of what's really going on and why he's acting that way, and it's like, and you start to feel bad for him. The abrasiveness, the acting out, it's all hiding this really hurt kid, you know, and it is a kid, even though he was 26 when the movie was not. He's playing a kid. This is a
Yeah.
teenager.
That was his armor.
Yeah, and it
Yes.
doesn't excuse the behavior, but it does make it easier to understand. Des, what do you think?
Yeah. So when Allison covers that picture with dandruff, that's actually Parmesan cheese. And it's funny because when they do things for this, like people will go up to her and scratch their head and stuff, and she
Yeah.
gets that all the time. It's like a callback from fans. And like you said, the character of Bender, definitely over the top, but super relatable to me as a kid who had, came from a shitty home and just had problems and went to school and just took it out on the teachers, which also made me feel for the principal. He's a dick, but I I mean, put yourself in his shoes, man. It's a thankless job, and he's dealing with other people's problems. These kids they don't want to raise. They're sending them to school with sticks up their asses, pissed off at their home life, and they're fucking taking it out on these teachers, and these teachers have to fucking deal with it, and they're not given any tools to discipline these kids. So they're just punching bags for these fucking kids. Um, this whole lunch interaction between Bender and Brian, I thought it was hilarious. This is fucking clever writing, like, ooh, peanut butter and jelly with the crust cuts off. Who'd your mother marry? Mr. Rogers? And as a matter of factly, Michael Anthony Hall says, no, actually, Mr. Johnson. And I fucking laughed out loud.
That was awesome.
It's great. And Dylan, I agree with you. Judd Nelson, he is straddling the line between obnoxious and cocky and insecure and wounded perfectly. It's a really good character. It's a really good character. And I always laugh. I mean, if you're familiar with like late 80s, early 90s hair metal, Judd Nelson to me in this movie looks almost exactly like Tammy Down from Faster Pussycat, the singer, only with dark hair instead of blonde hair. These two are spitting images of each other. Even to this day, he still looks like Judd Nelson, Tammy Down. It's crazy the face these guys have. And I thought this was all really great stuff. So as for the janitor, Carl, this part was given to Rick Moranis. He had it. He came in, he was given the role, but he came in with a heavy Russian accent, a
Oh
huge
no.
beard, and gold teeth. And the studio went, hell no. And they fired him. They fired him. They didn't even give him a chance. Yeah, didn't even give him a chance to refine the role. They just
Hell
fired him.
no.
And we're going to get a scene later in the movie. I looked at the script and I didn't see us mention it, so I'm just going to put it in here. Revealing that Carl was actually the prom king. So when Carl went to high school there, he was the most popular kid in the school, and now he's the janitor. So that's why it's hard to say where these kids will wind up, regardless of their high school status. I mean, look at Carl. Started off fucking Molly Ringwald, king of the school, and now he's sweeping up after everybody. He also had a speech cut out of the movie where he tells us where he thought these kids would be in 10 years. And it was fucked up. He was like, Claire would be married with a facelift and 2 bad boob jobs, and kids and just bad. Brian would be successful, but he'd have had a heart attack in his 50s. And he actually says Bender would get married, the woman would leave him, and he'd be dead in 10 years of a heroin overdose.
Oh, that's
That's
dark.
Isn't
Good
that
God, no
dark?
wonder it was cut.
No
And
wonder they
that
cut
was-
it because the movie is
yeah.
dark enough as it is in places.
Yeah, and I think he said that Emilio Estevez would be a salesman of some sort and just be kind of like
What
a
did he
middle
say about
class.
Allison? Do you remember?
Like an art teacher or something like that. I can't remember. The most important part for me was the Bender thing. It was like,
Yeah,
holy
yeah.
shit, man. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's way too dark.
yeah, that's what I got. Pat, what do you got on these scenes?
It's for some crazy reason you can see Claire starting to like Bender, and the dead giveaway, and I've seen it so many times, is the biting of the bottom lip.
Oh God.
As soon as I saw her do that, I'm like, oh yeah, he was right. she's not going to be able to forget about it.
Hang on, I want to just interject here because it's funny. I just watched Pretty in Pink, and I started doing a Molly Ringwald biting her bottom lip count. It's in the hundreds. It's in no, I'm not kidding. It's in the hundreds. They tamed it for this. Like she didn't go nuts here, but in Pretty in Pink, it ruins the movie. If you're looking now, I fucking ruined that movie for all our listeners because you'd be like, oh my god. Sorry, Pat. Go ahead.
That's fine. And I mean, each character you can easily like or hate. I mean, Bender was my favorite character, but in the beginning of the movie, you had to hate him. He was a condescending prick. He was just rude, obnoxious, and way too confident in himself. And as the movie progresses, you really come to like him a lot more, and so much more about him is revealed.
Pat,
Um,
Pat, but what you said about him being confident, I thought it was really clever the way John Hughes unties that for you on several occasions. When Molly Ringwald kisses him and he says,
yeah,
why did you do that? She says, because I knew you wouldn't. Because he's not
right.
confident enough to kiss her. When she showed some interest, he was a coward. He couldn't do it. When the principal says throw a
Vernon in the
punch, he was
closet.
a coward. He couldn't
Yeah,
do it.
right.
When he's called out by Andrew, he was a coward. He couldn't do it. This was a false front he was putting up. He was not confident.
It was his armor. It was
Yeah.
his image, and the way he acted was his armor. And when he was called on it, probably I'm guessing for the first time, it fell away. It just crumbled. It couldn't hold up to anything. There were some good lines though when they were talking about Claire getting something to drink. I think it might have been for lunch, and she says, "I get dehydrated real easy, and without missing a beat." You hear, I think it was Andrew that said it. I've seen her dehydrate. It's pretty
It's
gross,
pretty gross.
and I laughed my ass off. It
Oh, yeah.
really was.
Dude, there's
But the
so many good lines. The
oh,
Barry
I know it.
Manilow lines, Barry Manilow know you rate his wardrobe. I mean, they go on and on. They're great.
Right, right. During these scenes is when you start to see beneath the Bender's armor when he shows the cigar burn.
Mm,
And this is when you really hate his father. This is what you get in the Bender house when you spill paint in the garage. And all I could think to myself is, "Oh my god, are you freaking kidding me? It's fucking paint on a floor, and you burn your kid with a cigar for it." Wow.
yeah. So I have a picture. I have a school picture of myself. I'm probably, I don't know, maybe I want to say 7 or 8. Maybe even a little bit younger. And I've got a huge black eye. To this day, I don't know where I got it. I've seen the picture. And like, you go to school, you take the picture, nobody asks any questions in the fucking 80s. Or this would be probably late 70s. Nobody asks questions. This kid's getting burnt with cigarettes. You've got to figure this guy's been kicking his ass for his whole life, probably. And you think about how many teachers and people just looked the other way and never asked. And, the kid never got the help he needed. So yeah,
Well, look at it like this. This was back before the internet, before social media, when people minded their own damn business.
Yeah, but I don't know if I see a kid with a black eye.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. But in Bender's case,
Yeah.
um, you when you see physical abuse that apparent, you got to do something, say something.
yeah,
Yeah.
But I'm guessing the clothes he wore hid everything that was done to him.
yeah,
Because look at the outfit. He had like 6 layers on when he walked into that library,
yep,
Yeah.
and everything covered him up completely.
Another
yeah,
form of
Prob-
armor.
yeah,
There you go.
The group decides to sneak out of the library and go to Bender's locker. Bender retrieves a small amount of marijuana hidden there. On their way back, they nearly run right into Vernon. While trying to find a route back to the library undiscovered, Bender sacrifices his own freedom to help the others escape. He also stuffs his stash down Brian's pants. Vernon catches up with him in the gym, shooting hoops. Vernon takes Bender to a small closet. With his obvious hatred for the student parent, Vernon challenges him, offering him one defenseless punch. Bender's too scared to take the challenge, and Vernon reminds him that people won't take the word of a delinquent student over that of a high school principal. He leaves Bender locked in the closet. Bender slips out through the ceiling tiles and rejoins the group, retrieving his stash from Brian. The group spends the rest of their time smoking weed and dancing to music. It doesn't sound like a bad Saturday. Locking a kid in a closet for hours is really questionable. Even
Yeah.
then, like it wasn't good then, it's really bad now. To try to goad him into punching him, like I forgot that this whole thing had happened. Like in my the last time I saw it, I don't think I recalled him even being locked in the closet, let alone being left there essentially and offering the punch. So not good. This was not good.
Yeah. I love these scenes for Bender. It shows how, if given a chance, he could be a good self sacrificing friend. He knows that he's not going to get in any more trouble. But, if these other kids get caught, running around the school, it's going to be tough. So he sacrifices himself for these guys. And I think it's pretty good. It also shows how clueless this administration is. Brian needs help. He brought a fucking gun to school to kill himself. I mean, granted, it was a flare gun, which I thought was super clever because
And you see it at the beginning of the movie.
and what's great about this, super clever storytelling. So John Hughes is going to touch on a very, very deep, dark subject, but he's going to do it in a way to where it's not so heavy that it brings the movie down. Like hey, Andrew says, "Hey man, you brought it up. What was the gun for?" He's like, "Just forget it." He's like, "You brought it up." And it gets really heavy there, and you're starting to feel this. And then, he reveals that it was a flare gun, and everybody kind of starts laughing, and it lets the air out, and it's good. So
It uh, it was one of the more deeper scenes when they were all
yeah.
sitting around talking and revealing so much about themselves.
Hmm.
What was great with the scene with Brian was he brings the flare gun because he was going to kill himself, but it went off in his locker and destroyed the elephant that he was getting an F
Right.
for in shop.
Right.
Um, and you see when you see the charred locker, the camera pans down to the floor, and you see the crumpled remains of the elephant.
Hmm.
When I watched it a second time and picked up on that, I'm like, oh my god, that's a riot.
So I found it believable that the kids would follow John to get the weed, especially Brian, as he knows this would probably be the only time he'd ever have had a chance to see or try weed with a group of cool kids. He's probably never seen it, nothing. And he's like, this is my shot. Um, so he did it. What I didn't like was the over the top dance scene, especially Emilio Estevez's performance. It was way over the top. You know, the screaming, the breaking of the glass in the door. It was goofy. But what I did think was funny was, if you ever seen Weird Science, Brian would take the pot smoking performance that he did here in the Breakfast Club,
Yes.
and he would replicate it almost note for note in Weird Science, where he's in the bar, smoking. What it is, you just cannot hold your smoke. I mean, it's the same exact one.
Oh.
So this is kind of funny. So as I said, I was a bit of a bender, and I was influenced by the character. I've documented my struggles in school on the podcast before, going to the bad kid school, where I was literally ruthlessly assaulted by much bigger, tougher kids over and over till they realized I was not caliber bad kid to be in this school, and they had to take me out before these fucking savages literally killed me.
But not
Um,
before they took your pants off.
well, they did take my pants off, but you'll have to dig through our podcast to find that story. Um, so this is a true story. When I was in East Junior High School, this would be uh, eighth grade, I believe. I was in a remedial class with a bunch of benders, and I had seen the Breakfast Club, and I tried to climb up into the ceiling. I was telling Delyn, I got on my desk, I moved one of the ceiling panels over, and I started climbing up into it and lost my footing and grabbed onto the track because it was a drop ceiling, pulling down a good portion of the track and breaking two or three panels, which got me suspended and got my mother a bill to pay for the damaged track ceiling.
It's funny you say that because Bender's escape from the closet through the ceiling was priceless.
Yes.
And it was really funny because, of course, I know how these things are put up. And I'm immediately shaking my head going, there's no fucking way that ceiling's holding
Yeah,
anybody.
wouldn't hold
There's
his
just no
weight.
way.
No.
So I thought it was clever that he seems to be fine right up until he needs to be where he is. And then he falls through the ceiling.
Yes.
Um,
So
that was just so well played. I got a real laugh watching them running through the hallways, slipping and sliding on the floors,
mhm.
seeing Vernon having to go the other way. When Vernon comes in to the library after Bender breaks through the ceiling, and it's probably one of the funniest scenes I've seen had there. He says, "I will not be made fool of."
Yeah.
Turns around and he's got the sanitary paper from the toilet sticking out of his
So
pants.
fucking
I
funny.
laughed so I forgot that scene happened. I laughed so hard when he did that.
Yeah. The joke that Bender's telling as he's going through the ceiling is not a real joke. Bender just that was all improv. He just started making up a joke as he was going. He knew exactly how much time he had in the shoot and never even bothered coming up with a punchline. He just got to that point and online there's people that finish the joke. They try to write the ending for the joke. Yeah, I ultimately quit high school in the ninth grade. I was telling Delyn I wasn't old enough to quit, but they just had it with me. I had a giant tattoo on my
Just let him go.
shoulder that said "Eat me," and I used to go to school, and they would send me to the principal's office every day and be like, "You can't, you have to cover up the "Eat me" tattoo," and I wouldn't, and they'd send me home because they just didn't want me there. And after I quit, I had a dirt bike at the time, much like Kelly Lee from the Bad News Bears. After I quit high school, I would start showing up there at lunch on my dirt bike and ripping around through the parking lot and through the fucking lunch area, and they'd be trying to chase me off the ground. I was fucking insane. I was fucking
Yeah,
insane
you
as a
are.
child.
It's
Oh
amazing
God,
you made it this far.
it is.
I just, before we move on, one of my favorite scenes, again with Anthony Michael Hall with the dark sunglasses and he's smoking the weed. And you immediately go right to Weird Science, like you said, Des. Um, but the topper of the scene is when Bender high fives him and the hand goes, knocks him back, and he
Mm,
knocks backwards right off the bench from the high five.
so good.
I almost fell out of my chair. I was laughing so hard because that was just so perfect for that scene.
So Pat, in high school, which one of these kids would you have been?
Brian.
You fucking. Oh God. Okay, I want to flick your ear from here. Can I flick your ear? Oh God, that's what I was.
And I say that because kids used to cheat off me during testing.
Oh, it's funny. I find you to be a bit stupid. Delyn, who would you have been in this movie?
I
Coming
was
from him,
somewhere
that
between
means
Claire
nothing.
and Allison. I was not I was neither extreme. I was in between. I was a
Okay, you
hair
were in
metal
between.
kid. Yeah, I was a hair metal kid. So I had friends on both sides. I had popular friends and then I had like book friends. Like I was in the chorus. I was friends with kids that were in the art classes. I
I've
had odd friends.
I've seen your yearbook. You were like a female Brian, is
I
the
was
correct answer.
not.
Yeah, you're a big old
I was
Brian.
not. I was
Dude,
not.
you already
I
spelled that
wasn't in
wrong
AP
word.
classes or anything like that. I didn't take
You
calculus. I didn't
already
take
you
chemistry.
you
I
already
actually dropped out of science.
I made you spell that word to prove my point, Brian. Pat, I'm just fucking with you. Pat is
What a
actually
dick.
very smart. He knows a lot. So I just was picking on Pat because this is a Bender Brian situation. Actually, it's a Bender double Brian situation here today. Okay. All right,
Oh,
Brian, keep it
please.
going.
Unbelievable.
Listen, Brian, keep it going.
Do not start calling me Brian. You're going to have a problem.
I see some Brian's going forward.
You're going to have a problem.
I see problems going forward.
Yeah.
A
All
lot
right.
of them.
All right. Meanwhile, Mr. Vernon actually has several epiphanies of his own. When he's down in the basement looking through the personnel files of his teachers, he's caught by Carl, who essentially blackmails him for his silence about
It's
Vernon's
awesome.
poking through the confidential information about the staff.
I don't know.
The
How about
two
50 bucks?
The two spend the rest of the day talking. Vernon admits he's frightened of the future, that the very students he has in detention will one day be running the country. He also claims that since he's been into education for many years, that the kids haven't changed. They're all still defiant, arrogant, and disrespectful of authority. Carl tells Vernon that he's dead wrong, that Vernon is the one whose attitude is soured his perspective for a job he once liked. The kids will always be the way Vernon described them. He has just changed his perspective. So I separated up this scene on purpose because I thought that this scene, that when we were younger, was totally a throwaway scene. Like, you just didn't even pay attention in this scene. You just ignored it. Now it really resonates and makes a lot more sense. And, I think that Carl's right. Now, I know Des doesn't agree with me, but I think that Carl's right, that the principal has allowed the years to wear him down and make him somebody that his teenage self would hate, you know?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I agree, but at the same time, I can see this from the perspective of the principal. Um, I think so many teachers are just tortured. Teachers are underpaid in this country. They always have been.
Underappreciated.
Underappreciated, undervalued by society, and left to deal with children that are ignored by their parents. And a lot of times are acting out for attention. Did I deserve a punch in the face from certain teachers? Yes. Would they have been well within their rights to fucking smack me in my fucking stupid face? Yes. I was
No,
telling
honey,
Delin,
violence is never the answer.
yeah, I was telling Delin, I had been grabbed by the arm and yanked out of a chair and literally thrown out into a hallway on many occasions at school. These teachers have just had enough. And honestly, fucking Burns had enough too. Fuck, Bender is fucking pushing this guy. Pushing him and pushing him and pushing him. And finally he just says, take a swing, tough guy. So, yeah, I mean, was he wrong? Yeah, but I get it. Pat.
I'm still trying to figure out why exactly Vernon went to the basement to look through the files. Was he just nosy?
Yeah,
Was
Nosy
he
and
just
bored.
being that kind of an asshole that he really is?
nosy and bored.
Seeing Carl catch him and blackmail him was priceless. The look on Vernon's face when Carl said, "How about $50?"
So good.
was absolutely perfect. Seeing them sitting around and chatting, um, I'm not sure Vernon would take anything Carl had to say seriously, regardless of the topic, because in his eyes, Carl's just the janitor.
Yep.
I'm the vice principal. They're in two different levels.
Yeah.
When you see the beginning of the movie, they show the yearbook and they show Carl's picture, and you see him as a janitor. You can't imagine Carl thought he'd be a janitor when that picture was taken.
Right.
Life is just so different when you're a high school kid. But Vernon is way out of bounds through a lot in this movie, and it's all because of his anger, the way he talks to the students,
Oh, yeah.
the hands that he puts on Bender. In this day and age, would never happen, even with just a shove. Never happen. And it was the one thing about this movie that made me give it a lesser score, because his character was just
No, but Pat, back in the 80s, I had teachers like this. Like I said, I had teachers that put their hands on me. They did.
right. But again, it's not something you like to see. It's not something you agree with.
But it's real life.
That's true. I have to give you that.
Maybe not nowadays, but back then, absolutely. Did you guys notice that Claire took her lunch out of her purse and it was fucking sushi? Had been sitting there all morning. That's raw fish.
Yeah, not good.
Oh, the lunch scene itself was priceless. Going from one person's lunch to the other. Claire, the princess, has the sushi.
Yep.
Brian, the jock, has enough food for 4 people.
Yep.
And everyone's watching everyone take the food
Dude,
out.
Allison's Wonder Bread with Captain Crunch and Pixie Stick sugar.
Pixie sticks.
And she fucking ate that sandwich.
Oh my God, that was so funny. And watching everybody watch her do it,
Yep.
putting the sandwich together, that was just one of the greatest scenes. Everyone had their own lunch. And then you had to have Bender give Brian crap about his lunch.
Well, can we talk about how literally Brian had the most 80s prop ever, that thermos?
Oh, it's
Oh,
so
God,
good.
yes. I'm surprised it wasn't in a lunchbox.
Oh, and I love when Bender slaps his hand away. It's so good. It's
Oh,
so
yeah.
good.
No, we're not done with this.
Yeah.
But one thing that always made me laugh was when Andrew's emptying his lunch bag, he starts with a giant bag of chips,
Mm-hmm.
4 sandwiches. And every time he reaches in, it's like he looks in to see if there's anything else in the bag. And there's always something else in the bag.
Yeah. I'm not sure if this is what happened, but I imagine they probably handed him that bag and he didn't know what was going to be in it. It kind of felt that way. Like he was like, yeah,
His reaction would
yeah.
definitely that would explain
Like, are
it.
you shitting me? What? And an apple? And what? So,
And talking about bags, I laughed every. They went to get the weed from Bender's
yes.
locker, and he pulls out a big bag,
Yep.
in which he pulls out a smaller bag,
Yeah.
and then a smaller bag,
Yeah.
and then a smaller bag.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the guillotine that drops when you open the locker.
So good.
It was
Yeah.
so
And then
perfect for this
the truth
character.
lie that's told. What if your family? No. What if your dope was on fire? Impossible. It's in Johnson's shorts.
It's in Johnson's underwear.
It's so good.
Oh,
And
that
don't
was
forget
so
that
good.
Allison stole his locker, his
Yeah.
lock.
Lock
Yes.
and yeah.
Oh, that was awesome. Every time you turn around, she's stealing something. It was friggin' awesome.
All right. Late in the day, some of the group talk about what they did to land themselves in this Saturday detention. Claire had skipped class to go out with friends. In an earlier moment, she worries about whether or not her parents will ground her and suggests that they had a strained marriage where they use Claire to get back at one another. Brian tells everyone that he had felt suicidal after failing a project in his shop class and had brought a flare gun to school to possibly kill himself. The gun had gone off in his locker, instead starting a fire. Andrew's story seems to be the most painful. He had attacked another student who happened to be a friend of Brian's in the locker room after gym class, beating on him while his friends cheered him on and covered the boy's buttocks in duct tape, causing the boy minor but a humiliating injury. Andrew says he did it because his father is an overbearing tyrant. He describes him as a mindless machine I can't relate to anymore, who can't abide his kids being seen as losers and that they must win at all costs. Allison isn't really clear about the reason why she's in the detention session, other than to say that she had nothing better to do on a Saturday. Bender then returns to the closet by going back up to the ceiling. Now these things seem like such small infraction when we were in high school, but that shit was life or death. Like all that stuff going on. I remember things like school concerts or a grade on a paper was so important, and now it doesn't. Like the stupid the elephant. Like if he made it like 10 years into the future, he would have forgotten about the elephant by then, but he was
Right.
looking to kill himself over it. And it just reminds me how everything was life or death back then. Like
Yeah.
you don't get asked to the dance by the right person, and it's like a nightmare. And
End
like
of the world.
literally 10 years later you don't even remember that person's name, you know?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, school never really. I never got too up in a bunch about school stuff, but sure. I mean, I had plenty of girlfriends, and I can remember a few that you get dumped and they'd start going with somebody else, and yeah, I mean, you're ready to buy a flare gun. I mean, I've been there. So I love this scene, especially Emilio Estevez's performance here. So we talked about Brian. I thought it was a very good job by Anthony Michael Hall. I mean, he squeezes out some tears, and it's very believable. But it's just something about, and it's not so much Emilio's performance, is it's the picture that he paints. So he paints this picture of this really hairy kid, kind of a loser, or not. I mean, loser's the wrong word to use. I mean, not popular, let's say. And he paints the picture of what it must have been like for this kid to go home and have to tell his father that he got his butt cheeks tied together and he got beat up and he couldn't protect himself. And I thought it was a very powerful scene. Uh, I did think it was kind of weird though that we got the opening scene um, of Andrew's father yelling at him, saying, you're fucking this up. You're going to fuck your ride up. And, they're in this shitty Bronco. They don't have money. This kid's not going to college, a good college, unless he gets a scholarship for wrestling. So he says that he did this to Larry because he thought that it's what his father would want. I don't believe that. So it kind of contradicted the beginning of the movie.
Yeah, I disagree. It's not that it was almost like acting out against his father, who is trying to push so hard because he
Hmm.
got himself into trouble. So it's
Okay.
almost like this thing that he did. Like, first of all, yeah, his friends were probably egging him on, and it became like a
Yeah.
mob mentality thing. So he found it easier to do it because of that. But it almost sounds like his dad has been pushing him so hard, and his ride is on the line, and he put himself there because it was almost like he's rebelling. That was his way of rebelling against his father.
Yes, well, it's funny because keep that in mind because I'm going to paint a picture about Allison a little later in this podcast and Andrew.
Okay.
I really like the scene where everyone revealed why they were there. Um, and when Allison said that she had nothing better to do,
Yeah.
and everyone just starts cracking up because she really had nothing better to do. Parents ignore her. What else was she gonna do?
Yeah.
Let's go to detention and hang out with these people.
Yep.
When they were sitting down and getting deeper into each of these characters, Brian, I don't know who started. I think it started with Andrew. The emotion and the story that he painted, like you said, Des, was you could see the emotion in his face as he's telling these stories and he's telling these people what happened and how it's killing him that he did this as he's thinking about it. And going back to what you were talking about earlier, I think the biggest reason he did what he did to with the taping of the butt cheeks was more peer, not peer pressure, but to impress his friends. There were two different scenes. One, the taping of the butt cheeks had nothing to do when he was talking about the skinny kid across the room that nobody liked. He was kind of gawky, and he thought about his father and what his father thought about weakness, and that triggered him
Mm.
to just go over and start beating on this kid.
Wailing on
That
him.
was that was a direct result of his father. There's no question about that, and it was just a really deep scene to see him go through.
Yeah. Like I said, I've been on both sides of the bully thing, and in my experience, I think you have to ask a kid, why are you beating people up? Why are you doing this? But they don't. They just put them in detention or suspend them, and it just behavior just keeps going on and on. Like it's just crazy to me, man, how clueless people can be in this, in these situations.
Yeah,
At
they
that
did. They didn't
time,
know how to write they didn't know how to ask the right questions.
right, at
Any
that time,
questions?
it wasn't, it's school counseling now compared to then is night and day. It
Yeah.
didn't exist.
Yeah.
You didn't have anybody back then that had any kind of a degree when it came to teenagers and the way they think and what's going on and what they have to deal with. Now that is in your face
Yeah,
24/7.
well, bullying is a big topic in school now. It's like it's a thing. Like
Oh yeah.
you can't bully anymore, which is, how it
Well,
should be.
the worst thing about bullying back in the day before the internet and social media was more of a physical thing.
Yeah.
Somebody would get bullied in school. He'd get beat up. He'd get the proverbial lunch money taken. That's something that is somewhat you can somewhat deal with. Um, but once you're talking, the bullying today is happening via social media and online, and that is practically impossible to stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the only way to stop it is to change the way the kids doing the bullying think.
Yeah.
But go back to Claire and her clique of her friends, the peer pressure to be what they thought she should be and agreeing with everything they agree with. That's why you've got a lot of online bullying.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just people, and it's horrifying to think that this is what kids have to go through in school now. We thought it was bad back in the day when we were in high school, and some guy'd come around the corner and knock you on your ass and take your money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's nothing compared to what they have to deal with now.
Yeah.
You can mentally get over something like that.
Yeah, I'm still trying to. So Lynn, go ahead, keep it going.
Sorry, that was long winded.
It's all right. In the end, some of their more hidden character traits emerge. Claire is a natural leader. Bender develops a softer attitude and becomes more friendly with everyone. Claire spends some time with him in the locked closet making out, and it seems the two will try a romantic relationship. Andrew becomes interested in Allison after she allows Claire to give her a makeover. Brian realizes that he can write very eloquently, as he gets to show everyone later. So I'm going to pause my read to say the makeover's bullshit. I hate the fucking makeover. She was lovely just the way she was. And Andy suddenly being hot for her is a little gross to me. Like,
Yeah.
you didn't like her. Now she has like a dress on and now you like her. Like, just let the girl be herself. Be comfortable in who she is. And okay, back to it. At Claire's
No, no,
request, no,
No,
okay,
like, yeah,
okay,
let's.
okay,
We need to interject here.
yeah, let's
okay,
interject
go
here
ahead.
and then we'll
As soon as I read that in the script, I'm like, oh, we're gonna have
yeah,
something to
and
add
then
to
we'll
Okay,
go on
that.
from here.
okay.
Listen, I agree about the makeover, right? But here's the thing. Andrew liked her the whole time. He was giving her looks and giving her the he was puppy dogging her.
Engaging her with
Yeah,
conversation.
he was puppy dogging her the whole time. Was she out of his comfort zone as a person? Of course, she would be out of anybody's comfort zone as a person. She's a fucking wacko, but she's cool. You know, she's like a wacko in a good way. So here's what I get. Okay, I was telling you about this earlier. I agree Alice's makeover is not working. Her character is built around being different, but oddly confident in who she is. She's a great artist. She's and in fact, while Claire is doing her makeover, Claire says to her, "This looks way better than that black shit." And Allison replies, "I like that black shit." Right?
Right.
Like she's not
She's
buying this.
comfortable with herself.
Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
like that black shit. And so did I. I like the black shit. I thought she looked great. I thought she was the best looking girl there. So in my
Absolutely.
experience, a jock, and I kind of felt like this would have been a better character path for these characters in the end. So in my experience, I feel like a jock would be more likely to go goth in high school for an interesting goth girl than a goth girl turning into a Barbie doll for a jock, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially in this instance where we see Andrew, he smokes pot, he's rebelling. He beats up the kid, he's rebelling. He says he doesn't like the pressures of competing and being expected to win. This is a kid just looking for a reason to
He's
start
looking for a
fucking.
reason to pierce his ear.
He is.
Yeah. Right.
He's looking
Right.
for a
Yeah.
reason to fucking go out and buy a cult album. I mean, a Cure album and fucking give himself the black spiky haircut and hang out with fucking Allison and become a fucking emo kid. And in high school, the girl holds the power. We fall in love as young boys, and the girls get bored and move on to the next cute boy. And we listen to the fucking Cure album for a summer and lose 5 pounds. That's the way it goes.
Wow,
Fucking
that was pretty insightful.
Delin.
That was very specific.
Okay, keep it
Yes.
going. Keep it going.
Hang on. Hang
Well,
on.
Pat
Oh wait,
wants to go.
well, no. Okay, no, I just said that because we just watched The Wedding Singer, and that's what happens to Robbie after he gets stood up. So
I thought Allison before the makeover was cuter than Claire. There's no
100%.
question. Absolutely.
Yes.
And she still looked nice after the makeover, but I definitely liked the way she looked
She was
before that.
boring
Yeah, I
after
mean,
the makeover.
she's Ali Sheedy.
Yeah.
She's a beautiful girl. You dress her up, she's gonna look great. But I personally like a girl with a little fucking
Mystery,
yeah,
a little
sure,
flavor.
sure.
sanity.
But I married you anyway.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
I got
I'm
way more
joking.
flavor than you, kid.
I'm joking.
That could be your intro.
No, Delin is
No.
Delin's awesome.
I know.
Holy shit! Wow.
All right, here we go. At Claire's request and the consensus of the group, Brian agrees to write the essay Mr. Vernon had assigned earlier on behalf of all of them, which challenges Vernon and his preconceived notions of them. While Brian accedes, instead of writing about the actual topic, he writes a very motivating letter that is, in essence, the main point of the story. He signs the essay, The Breakfast Club, and leaves it on the table for Vernon to read when they leave. There are two versions of this letter, one read at the beginning at the movie and one read at the end, and they differ slightly, illustrating the shift in the students' judgments of one another and their realization that they truly have things in common. The movie ends as the characters leave detention. The final shot shows Bender walking near the goalpost of the football field, freezing as he raises his hand triumphantly and fading to a dark frame as the end credits roll. I like the changes in the speech because it does exactly what I said. It shows you how they've changed their own preconceived notions of one another.
So when Brian's father picks him up, that is actually John Hughes driving the car, playing his father. So I thought that was pretty cool. And it was weird. So John Hughes he really valued Anthony Michael Hall's opinion. He was asking him like questions on casting, questions on script, questions like so he was hanging out with Brian and or with Anthony Michael Hall and Molly Ringwald. They were going to concerts, he was taking them to movies, and they say John Hughes was very like yeah, he was just like a young at heart like teen himself. So yeah, he loved Molly Ringwald and Anthony Michael Hall to the point where he kept writing movies for him. And eventually, I think it was um Some Kind of Wonderful. He wrote that for Molly Ringwald. I believe that was the movie. And she turned it down. She said she wouldn't do it. And it broke his heart. They didn't speak from the shooting of that movie till he died, basically. She reached out to him and just before he died, and he responded with a very elaborate bouquet of flowers, but didn't speak to her, and that was kind of how it was left. But she felt like it was closure. So were they all still friends?
So that scene where they're all sitting around and talking, and Molly
Yes.
Ringwald says, "Are we going to be friends after this?" Or maybe even Brian says, "Are we going to be
Brian.
friends?" Like,
Brian
and
says
she
it.
says no, and Emilio Estevez just kind of like be uncomfortable if, and that was like that was actually reality. Like
Yes.
you might make
Yeah.
a friend, like, and so like
Was.
the way my high school thing went was that I did have friends that were in different cliques because I was one of those kids that kind of, had legs in many territories, so to speak. But a lot of times that did not happen. If you were a metalhead, you did not talk to the nerdy kids. If you were a nerdy kid, you did not talk to the art kids. If you were an art kid, you didn't talk to the jocks. Like
Yeah.
a lot of times that was it. And if you were in your clique and you hung out together, and that was that. And nobody was crossing boundaries.
No.
So, that was actually very realistic to me.
Yeah. I mean, were they all still friends Monday morning? It's hard to say. I'd like to think they were, but in reality, these relationships were probably lukewarm at best.
Can you imagine Claire going to her friends and being like, "I like John Bender and we're going out"? Like they'd be like, no. No, you're not."
Yeah.
Well, that's just it. When she talks about how the pressure of her clique and her friends and how she should think and what she should say, that entire situation with being friends, I think the only one that would have actually said he was friends would have been Brian.
But I have to disagree because when they come into the school, Carl says, "Hey Brian, how's it going?" And Brian ignores him because he is afraid that he'll be judged by the other students for being friendly with the janitor. So
Right.
this goes right down the line.
Yep, it's
Okay, I
true.
forgot about
Yeah.
that. Okay, so that works
Children
out.
are
But still,
terrified of being
the scene
judged.
itself, right? The scene itself, you have to know everybody at that era. They were all in cliques.
Yeah.
Yes.
The crazy people, the jocks, the popular cast, and none of them intermingled for any reason out of fear of their peers'
Yeah.
reaction.
That's what
And that was revealed right there in that scene. It's one of the deeper, more meaningful scenes in the entire movie.
I feel like Claire could have pulled it off. She's super popular. And John Bender, he's a really good looking dude. I mean, she dresses him up a little bit, shines him up a little bit. He's going to be her little project and her friends are going to be fine with it. It won't last. It's a quick fling, but Claire could pull that off. I feel like Andrew could also pull it off, but here's the problem. Allison is insane. Like she's just really like she's just
Oh,
she
yeah.
literally
She's
she
nuts.
needs help. I mean,
She's nuts.
she's a crazy girl. So
She wants to run away. We never actually got into what was with her history.
Right.
The reason she was collecting things, I think I read this, because she was grabbing things that she thought she would be able to use when she ran away.
Yeah.
right.
Well, that's why when she empties her bag under the couch,
She's got so much
she
shit
gets
in
so
it.
much shit in it. And he's like, "Why do you have all this?" And she's
Oh, yeah.
like, "So if I'm ready at any time to just go."
Yeah. Yeah, but she tells a lot of lies,
That's
says
true.
she
She's
banged her
an unreliable
therapist.
narrator.
She is a very unreliable narrator. And it almost feels to me like she's fucking with these kids. Like she might be a little bit smarter than these other kids.
Well, yeah, think about it. She tells them that she was sleeping with her therapist,
Yeah.
and like
That was all for
it was
Claire.
all
So
That
it's
just to
was
get
funny.
all
Claire.
for
It's
Claire.
funny because
It was all to Claire then.
with talking about this, she's fucking with them kind of like Bender is. She's trying to get reactions out of these other kids. And she's saying shocking things and
Mhm.
she's doing shocking things to get their goat. So
Yeah.
she's almost like, I just realized that she's almost the foil to John Bender. They're almost two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
And think about it. In the beginning of the movie, she never said a word.
Yeah.
Squeaky sounds. That made me
Yeah.
laugh my ass off. She'd squeak and squeal, but when she opens her mouth, half the time you don't know what to believe.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you already have the assumption that she's nuts.
That's right. All right. I think we have broken this movie down. We get the final scene that Delin stole from me, where Bender throws his hand up in the air, the fist. I loved it. I
Perfect.
fucking love it. I fucking love it.
Perfect.
The one thing I want to say, so the breaking glass in the beginning of the movie is something that John Hughes fucking hated, and he hates it to this day. He thought it was terrible and it shouldn't be there. I liked it. I thought it was kind of a cool little stylistic shot. So for me, it worked perfectly.
It
But-
didn't fit.
I could have
But
done
John
without it.
Didn't fit the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, John Hughes hates it. Like he's like his fucking blows.
I was just going to say the ending scene with the soundtrack for the movie. It's just everybody, all the kids, they all get in their car with their parents, and here's Bender, the lone wolf, walking across the football field, coming towards the camera. He's got the outfit on, and that long coat was perfect
So
for
cool.
him. That just really made that character shine.
Yeah.
And he puts the sunglasses on, and when he does the fist pump in the air, and I had to write this down, to this day, every time I see that scene, I get a chill. Because it's just so perfect. The song, the scene, the freeze frame. It was absolutely
It was the end of an
perfect.
80s rock video. It's fucking great. Okay, let's head over to the recasting couch and recast this bitch. I would replace Judd Nelson with one Sean Penn. I thought you would like that, Delin. No, seriously. I wouldn't replace him with Sean Penn. I did that for Delin. I would replace him with Charlie Sheen. I think it would be really great to see the two brothers face off. And I'll tell you, I would have done the character very similar to the character he played in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, where he plays the bad boy in jail. So I think he could have pulled that off. I mean, Judd Nelson is John Bender. Nobody can take his place, but yeah, just fun.
I don't know. I could replace him twice.
Oh,
I got
shit, go ahead,
two.
Delin.
I'd put Rob Lowe in there, or I'd
Okay.
put Robert Downey Jr. in there. Especially Robert Downey Jr. back then. He was a fucking train wreck. Less than zero. RDJ, yes.
You know who would have been the better bully if you were going to take somebody from Weird Science? Would be the guy that played his buddy, the taller bully.
I don't remember who his buddy was in that.
Oh, he would have been a great
No.
John Bender.
I don't remember.
Pat,
I'd have to look
what
it
do
up.
you got? Recast it.
Well, I thought I had two, and one of them, Delin, you brought up, was Downey Jr.
Yeah.
At that time, when these movies were made, I used to get Judd Nelson and Robert Downey Jr. confused.
They look nothing alike.
because they looked so similar. So he
They
would
look
have been my
nothing
first
alike.
pick.
So,
Well,
Robert
who
Downey
cares?
Jr. is too short to pull this.
whatever
role
you
off.
say. But my original choice was going to be someone they considered for the role, and that would be Nicolas Cage.
Oh, I'd like that.
Yeah. I think he was like 35 at the time of shooting.
No, Valley Girl age.
Yeah.
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 No, he would be fine. In fact, out of all those recasts, I think that Nicolas Cage would have been the best one for that role because he was so good in fucking Valley Girl, like really good.
Yeah.
He can do
Right.
evil.
Nobody touches Judd Nelson. He had that role fucking wired.
Oh, yeah. Bender was perfect.
Okay, let's do some final thoughts and we will score this thing. So this was one of my favorite movies through much of my teen years. Couple of scenes that I could have done without. The dancing scene was a little bit goofy.
Which dancing scene?
I know there was two.
The one after they smoke the pot and they all go insane.
Oh, I enjoyed that scene very much.
Oh, I hated it. Yeah, so I'm going to give this one a 4.78. 4.78.
Okay.
It's a damn good movie. Dylan.
So it's a seminal 80s movie. It's a rite of passage. If you're interested in anything 80s, if you're younger and you did not grow up in that time, but you are interested in looking back and seeing what life was like. I mean, yeah, this is through the John Hughes lens. It's not, perfect, but yeah, it's pretty close. It gets there. I'm going to give it a 4.62.
Nice. Pat.
This movie was almost like the Tale of Two Cities. Before they smoked the pot and after they smoked the pot. Before they smoked the pot, there was a lot to not like about a few of these characters. After they smoked the pot and they relaxed, they let their guard down. Everything was revealed about their lives, and it changed every one of them. Hearing uh, what the other person's life and their woes were. Um, I'm gonna give this a 3.75.
I'm glad you went a little lower. I didn't want this to go too high. I thought we were
No, there were
starting.
too many things that I didn't like about it when
Yeah.
it came to Bender being confronted in the closet, Bender being put in the closet. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
my favorite scenes came after they smoked the pot, and I know you didn't like the dancing scene, but I thought it was the one with Emilio Estevez going batshit on his own. I could have done without that, but seeing the choreograph as they're dancing together, switching partners, I thought that was creative and funny.
Okay. So there you go. Good deal. We've done this one. Dylan, calculate those scores and please tell us where it landed on the
So
list.
it lands on the list at number 23. It is a tie with Constantine at 4.83333333.
What's above it and what's below it?
Right above it is
Please?
Blade Runner at 4.40, and right below it is Poltergeist at 4.38.
It sits right where it should
Oh,
be.
I like that. I think that's this is one of those ones where I say perfect.
Yeah, it seems like
That's
if
perfect.
it's living right in the right neighborhood. Yeah, like Nightmare on Elm Street is around there. Usual Suspects is around there. Fletch is around there because you overscored it too so much.
No, he didn't.
I
Did
think
he?
I think that uh, I think that fucking Poltergeist is a little better than fucking Breakfast Club, but what are you gonna do? Okay, we will be back next week with Mickey and Tony for another dysfunctional date night, and we will be reviewing My Cousin Vinny. My Cousin Vinny. I'm looking forward to that one. Movie that I love. Tip of the hat. Good stuff. We reviewed Dawkin under lock and key this week on Breaking Vinyl, our sister podcast. And in 2 weeks on Breaking Vinyl, we will finally be breaking down Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. You don't want to miss this one. You don't want to miss this one. Tip of the hat. Greatest album ever recorded. Ever. 100 watts. Okay. All right, guys. That's it. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for Pat coming to the show. Great. As always, Delin watching the movie from different sides of the condominium and then talking about it on this podcast is what we do. I might come down to visit you later. Okay. Until next time, just have one question for you. Hey, did you ever see that movie? See you later.